Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Aisha Alves, who's a talent executive at FlowerHire in the US. How are you keeping, Aisha?
Thanks for having me, Owen. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for taking your time to do this. I know you're a very busy lady. Do you maybe want to give everybody a quick little overview of how you ended up at FlowerHire and your position in the sector at the moment?
Absolutely. So this is my my act two of my career. I spent a lot of time as an education executive in the beauty and wellness industry, and really felt like that was going to be my career, full stop. And then during the pandemic, when everything kind of changed around, and I lost that career, I was laid off from the job that I thought that I was going to have forever. It was a moment for me to really think about what I wanted to do with the second half of my career and really do something that was doing good for people, and also to be part of something that was growing and dynamic and full of potential and innovation. So automatically I thought about going into cannabis. I have a lot of respect for the plant, and actually came to FlowerHire as a candidate to see if they would help me find a job. And as I was speaking to the recruiters, we really clicked, and they said, "Hey, why don't you be a recruiter?" And so the rest, as they say, is history. It wasn't something that I set out looking to do, but the stars aligned and I met the right people, and now I've never looked back. It was the best choice I ever made.
I'm delighted to hear that. The world moves in mysterious ways. When one door closes,
It
another one
totally
opens
does.
up. Jumping on to the first topic of conversation is how to recruit talent in cannabis. Obviously, if people are looking for jobs, there's jobs boards and companies out there. But if you've got a specific talent that works in an overall business, first of all, how do you guys find the talent? And second of all, how do the companies reach you guys looking for the talent?
Great question, Owen. So I think first, if we talk about the candidate side, if we talk about people who are looking to work in the industry, there's two camps, right? There are people who have worked in the industry before and who are now looking for their second or third home within the industry, because as the market is growing and shifting and all of those things, we do see a lot of movement from within different cannabis operators. And then you've also got people who, like myself, 2 years ago, are making that initial pivot into cannabis. So if we're talking about the second group, right? So someone who has never worked in cannabis before and who now wants to get into the industry, there's a lot of things that, we always say for job seekers in general, right? Activate your network, make sure that your LinkedIn looks good, all of those things. But specifically, if you're trying to get into the industry, I suggest that people really take a look and create a resume that is specifically tailored toward cannabis. And I say that because sometimes the transferable skills that are really going to stand out to cannabis companies are different than what they're used to putting on their resume. So, for example, anything that has to do with working in regulated environments, anything has to do with a lot of dealing with compliance, that is something that is really heavily valued in cannabis, and you should probably highlight on your resume. And if you have experience in startup organizations or any type of startup industry, that is also really highly valued because it shows your ability to be adaptable and nimble in a work environment that's super dynamic and sometimes can be unpredictable. So yes, I would say, do create a cannabis facing resume. One of the tools I like to tell people to use is there is a website called careersincannabis.com, and there's actually a free resume builder on there that is catered to the cannabis industry and highlights those specific skills that the hiring managers are looking for. It's a great starting place for anyone who kind of doesn't know where to start. So that's a first place that they can go to.
Okay, interesting. And when it comes to looking for the talent at the moment, what is the most sought after talent? Is it economical expertise? Obviously, the wave of LLMs and AI technology that's out there. That is it. Python coders. Is it executives who've already worked in business development and are now switching over, or is it legal expertise? Where do you see the most sought after talent being in the cannabis industry at the moment?
It is all of the above and more. And that's what I think is so exciting about recruiting within cannabis. If you think about these vertically integrated organizations, you are not going to see the breadth and the diversity of talent that these companies need in any other industry, right? If you think about a vertically integrated multi-state operator, they are hiring anyone from plant trimmers, hourly workers who are working in the grow, to directors of marketing, to heads of finance, to C-suite. I mean, they literally are building everything from scratch. So I think any type of talent is always going to be applicable in terms of coming into the industry. At the moment, with the state of the market as it is, it's an employer's market, right? Because there's probably right now more experienced cannabis professionals on the market looking for new jobs than ever before. So if you are, looking to build a team, now is really the time to do it, because there's a lot of folks who are looking for work, and you're going to have, a range of really great people to choose from, as opposed to in other times when, you go out, you're trying to hire people and everyone's already in a job, So right now, I would say the most demand that we're seeing is finance and accounting. I think that those roles are always things that will always be, we have a need for, specifically people who have experience in manufacturing cost accounting and retail finance and planning and analysis. Those are always really hot jobs. And then, of course, anything that's touching the production side. So manufacturing operations managers, inventory, procurement, all of those things I think are always going to be very much in demand.
Is there a specific state or territory that's the hot spot for jobs at the moment in the industry? Obviously, we don't have federal legalization yet, but I would imagine New York has a thirst for a lot of the top kind of talent in the industry. Is that nice?
It's funny you say that, because literally on my other screen, I have a big spreadsheet of all my New York talent, because yes, absolutely. There's a lot of movement in New York, and we are starting to see the demand for hiring talent there, especially on the retail and revenue side, because in New York, they're opening up a lot of new dispensaries. So they're looking for people who have really strong retail sales marketing experience to drive revenue in those retail dispensary outlets. Now, at the same time, you're also seeing a lot of demand in the emerging markets of the Southeast United States, which is super interesting, because even a year and a half ago, those states were not even on our radar. So I'm talking about Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri has really done well, and that market has really blown up in a big way. So the Southeast quadrant of the United States, being these emerging, newly open markets, they have a lot of demand for talent as well.
Moving on to the next topic now, I wanted to talk about was what makes a good candidate. Obviously, from people, myself, or other companies that I own, trying to find the right candidate, never mind in cannabis, is difficult to know. When you add in the cannabis factor, it's, do they know about the plant? Are you happy that they're more business orientated? Do you find the odd unicorns who you can marry both of those skill sets?
Oh man, when we find a unicorn.
They're the ones that have the real value.
It's a great question. I think, of course, with every client we work with every hiring company, they have their idiosyncrasies and their specific things that they look for. But that being said, I think across the board, people who do well in cannabis tend to be a combination of a few things. Number one, we're always looking for people who have a good cannabis story, right? I think cannabis right now, because it is so it's highly it's portrayed in the media as a very fast growing industry and a place where you can make money. Yes, absolutely true. So we want to make sure that the people who want to get into the industry are entering for the right reasons. Because if you apply in cannabis thinking you're going to get rich quick and that's the only motivation you have, guess what? That's not going to cut it, because you're going to come in here and see how hard the work is and say, this is not what I signed up for, right? So as cannabis recruiters, what we always look for is try to dig down and find out, what is the motivation for this person entering the industry? Is it because they themselves are consumers and they have felt like the plant has made a positive impact in their lives and they want to give back? That's something we hear a lot, but it's not required. Not everyone is a consumer. Maybe it's someone who had someone close to them that benefited from the plant from a medical or wellness standpoint. And then there's also people who are just really love startup. You know, maybe they went through the dot-com thing and they want that kind of excitement again, and they know that they can find that in cannabis. So, you know, there's a range of things, but having a good cannabis story is probably one of the most important. Beyond that, and of course, like I mentioned before, people who are nimble, people who are ready to kind of work in this very hectic environment. There's also some personality things that we find tend to be common denominators, right, with people who are successful in cannabis. So I'm talking about people who are inquisitive. You know, when you work in this industry, you can't just put yourself in a box and only want to know about your specific work, because everything is connected. And so if you are a person who is naturally curious about learning the other aspects of the industry, you will do better in cannabis. Another thing is we look for people who are resilient, right? Because sometimes you go through changes and, you know, crazy challenges that were it a person who was not cut out for this work, they would throw in the towel. They would say, oh man, this place is crazy, I'm out of here, right? But a resilient person will say, hey, this is a challenge, how can we work around it, and how can we get better? So that's a big thing too. And then we also like to say a little bit crazy. You know, I think sometimes people who have that little touch of wackiness in them tend to do well in this industry as well, because you have to really be prepared to interact with all walks of life, every kind of person you can think of, from the most, you know, white collar corporate person to, you know, someone who spent half of their life in prison, you know, due to the plant. So literally someone who has that, you know, that personality that can really get along with just about everyone is also very helpful.
Yeah, I've noticed in over 2 years of doing this podcast, it started out originally as just gathering data about the various sectors in the industry, because if you're investing or being an entrepreneur, you need to know all the facets. And over 200 episodes and 2 years later, there's a new sector that's popping up or a new law that's popping up. And I think I've got a degree in chemistry, biology, cultivation, the lab testing. There's so many facets of this industry that one actually has to be a breath with. You can't just necessarily have a narrow focus on. Trying to find those people is the job that people like yourselves are on the hunt to do.
It's hard work, but we're happy to do it.
Tell me this, what are your forecasts for the next 12 to 24 months in the US? Do you see safe banking or federal legalization popping up? Because I would imagine that's going to create a wave of M&A activity, which then will drive skill sets from current sectors that aren't necessarily in cannabis at the moment. But when federal legalization comes, I would imagine the pool of talent that's going to come into cannabis is going to be pretty significant.
Well, I believe that everyone is kind of holding their breath and waiting for that, you know, kind of like golden moment, right? When safe banking is passed and federal legalization. But honestly, I don't know if that's something that's right around the corner. I think there's still a lot of back and forth on that, and we'll get close and then it won't happen. And then it's like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. It's frustrating, but you know, we all knew that that's what we signed up for, right? So some of the things that we are predicting is, number one, you are going to see a migration of talent across the United States. You know, you're thinking about those mature markets like California, Colorado, you know, where they have had a bustling industry for many years. Those emerging markets that I talked about are going to be importing talent from those states because they need the people with expertise. And in the local markets, those people don't exist. So number one, you're definitely going to see a lot of people physically moving cross country to go to these new markets. I think also you mentioned New York earlier. I think New York will be a game changer in terms of what the future of the industry looks like. You know, New York is the financial center and the cultural center of the United States, if not, you know, most of the Western world. So I think the way that they handle their market and legalization will be kind of like an example of what it could look like for other states, because it's so different from California in terms of the way that they do business and the way that they're creating businesses. They have a heavier focus on social equity programs, which is also great to benefit communities that have been disproportionately negatively affected by the war on drugs. So that's one thing definitely to keep an eye on, you know, keep an eye on New York. And then also, I think we're also going to see a maturing of the cannabis industry in terms of from a corporate standpoint, I mean, this is a very not sexy thing to talk about, but as a recruiter, it's something that we think about a lot. As these companies are growing and maturing, you're going to see them have more of a robust HR infrastructure, which means when you come into the industry, you're not going to be working with like some ragtag group and, you know, working with the bare minimum. You're going to see more resources available to you when it comes to benefits and insurance and health plan, you know, all of these things that you need resources to offer. We're starting to see more of that in companies offering as well. So that's great news.
Yeah, the maturity of the industry is going to bring in all the regulation benefits that the banking and financial sector and many other big sectors do employ. We're at our time now. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. For anybody looking for more information on FlowerHire, their website is below and it'll be in the description of where you're watching or listening to this. But for now, Aisha, thank you very much for your time today. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, happy to hear from anyone. If you are looking for a job in cannabis, if you're looking to build a team in cannabis, myself and my team at FlowerHire are here and ready.
Till next episode, everybody. Thanks.